Imagine having access to a tribe of mentors consisting of some of the best tech leaders in the world, people you may have never heard of, but who in just an hour, you'll know their unfiltered career story. The bets they took, the decisions they made, where they failed, and the lessons that they learned along the way. Welcome to the What Makes You Tick podcast. I'm Tolu, aka the Podfather, and I have the pleasure of hosting What Makes You Tick.
You do, Tolu, and I am Richard. I have an even more high level of pleasure to be the sponsor of this podcast and run a lovely business called Tick Talent. But less about me, more about our guest. Who have we got on this week?
This week is Siobhan. Mama calls her Siobhani. What did you think of this week's episode?
Oh, do you know what? It's one of those wonderful conversations. I really enjoyed listening back to this one. Very much like the first conversation I had with Siobhan. She's just this super engaging person.
Yeah.
Like you would love to work with Siobhan. And she's so honest, so funny. There's fantastic banter.
Yeah.
And you can kind of tell she's grown up in quite an entrepreneurial family with Magic Mick as a dad. And the way that she tells stories about her career and the growth she's got, but also her mindset, which is such a modern way of thinking. And I just don't think there's enough people talking about things like really understanding ADHD, neurodiversity, really getting into AI and learning AI and becoming a bit of an expert within her sphere in this kind of new world of tech. So there's so many things that I enjoyed about this conversation. As the man who had the conversation, what did you enjoy the most?
Siobhan is great energy and a lot of substance underneath the energy. So she's really, really good fun. And then when it gets down to it, like she knows what she's talking about and she's always seeking learning and always trying to understand what's happening. How can we use this to our advantage? So yeah, really, really good conversation, really good laugh. Had a great time.
Loved it. Everyone's going to enjoy listening to this episode. Without further ado, let's roll the VT.
Siobhan, welcome to What Makes You Tick. It's great to have you on the show and I'm really looking forward to our episode.
Hi, Tolu. Great to be here.
Yeah, we had a really, really good pre-chat. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to get into hearing more about you. So the first question is, Siobhan, what makes you tick?
Okay, that is a great question. And I would say at the very core of my being is people. I love people. I'm one of those people who is lucky enough to like most of the people that I meet. And if I don't like them, I make sure I put a lot of space between me and them very quickly. In all seriousness, I love managing teams. I love being part of a community. I love giving back to the community. And I always seek for ways to learn more from my community. And that community can be the sales community. I'm in a number of one groups. I'm really into music, dancing. I help out with various charities, especially around homelessness, which I'm very passionate about. So giving back and contributing is what makes me tick.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And what makes you not like someone?
Someone who has no empathy. I've worked with a couple of people who just have no empathy. And, being hard and being driven doesn't necessarily mean that you are not empathetic. But I've been in situations where I feel that I'm incredibly empathetic. I've had some challenges throughout my life, as most of us when we get to our 40s, 50s have. But I've learned from them, and they're a reason to be able to better understand other people. And when you are empathetic, it is much easier to understand other people, to understand what makes them tick, and that's the best way to be able to manage them. When you understand what makes people tick, you can work out what their drivers are and what incentivizes them.
For me, it's rude people.
So
Rude people.
lack of empathy, rude people. People. Sorry, I'm just thinking of someone actually who manners cost nothing. It's like,
Honestly.
come on,
Honestly, yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
You mentioned that you really enjoy managing teams. What have been some of your kind of real mountaintop moments from when you've been managing teams?
Well, in one of my more recent career highlights, I inherited a team of SDRs, BDRs. Can't remember what the fashionable term for it is this week, but this week is actually BDR, SDR Appreciation Week, and let me tell you, I really like. Oh yeah, it is. That's a thing that I tell her.
I didn't know.
And yeah. Hallmark have probably made a card for the occasion. So yeah, I inherited a team who were a little dysfunctional, very depressed, very down because they'd been managed for a year plus with someone who was reasonably good at his job, but was just interested in the tooling, the technology, the processes, and there was no hands-on management, there was no TLC, there was no checking in, training, coaching, mentoring, all the things that I love, I really enjoy. So for me, I relished getting the team. I loved it because they were all real superstars in their own right. But it was up to me to uncover what each of them were good at. And yeah, I remember the first. So I mean, the first few meetings and kind of one-to-ones were painful at first because they were learning to trust me, and trust is at the heart of every relationship, especially in business. And yeah, I remember the first group team meeting that we had where they all ended up laughing and there were smiles on everyone's faces, and it was just a beautiful moment. It's really corny, but they had trusted me to be able to relax enough.
Yes.
And when I left that business in the last year, I got so many messages from that team and others in business to say, I miss you. You were the best manager I've ever had. You know, please tell me where you're going next. I want to come and join your team. And yeah, like I had a voice message with someone who was one of the more seniors because I inherited the SDR team, but I was also managing much more senior seasoned sales professionals. And I had a voice message from one of them yesterday going, I really miss you.
Oh,
and it's
love
just
the way it
like,
worked.
yeah, it's brilliant. You know, it's because actually, you know, sales is a very black and white domain where success is measured in financial revenue gains. And actually, that's achieved because people trust you and want to work with you and learn from you and are actually coachable as well. But that's a whole different rabbit story. That's a rabbit hole down. Yeah. But yeah, helping them become coachable is another thing. So yeah, I would say that that's most recently something I'm very proud of.
And you mentioned building trust. So what are some of the things that through your career that you found to be really effective ways of building trust?
First of all, asking the right questions, analyzing the situation by yourself. I'm trying to work out what's really going on, because sometimes what you see is, you know, the challenge, the issue, whatever, the problem in business or in sales is never quite the issue. There are lots of things going on to have brought us to this point. So you have to ask the right questions first to be able to uncover what's really going on. And then the real secret is shutting up and listening. So we've got 2 years, 1 month. And, you know, good salespeople have learned this mantra, 2 years, 1 mouth, use them in direct proportion. And that for me is the start of building trust. And then by saying what you're going to do, being very clear on what your plan is and what your team are expected to contribute, and then doing what you say. Say, walk the walk and talk the talk and show up every day. So that's another thing, about showing up every day, coaching, mentoring, being there for people, opening up and sharing about your experiences, what gives you the right to be there, to be leading that team, and how my experience can actually help them in their current challenges. So that's what builds trust. I am a very open person, and what you see is what you get. I have a personality. and I say that because we're living in a world where a lot of people are becoming a bit similar, if you ask me. If you're looking at LinkedIn, there's a lot of, hey, bros, do as I say, and you'll be 100% successful. And we all know, if you've been in sales for a while, it's not that easy. And my personality comes out, and I find it very easy to make friends, to build very productive relationships with people. We can't be friends with everyone that we lead or work with, but we can have a productive working relationship.
Agreed.
And I think being able to show a bit of humanity and humor, being able to smile and laugh, also helps build trust and bring teams together.
Was that a journey for you in terms of getting comfortable with your personality and letting that shine through, or was that something that you've always been comfortable with?
Man, I'm Irish. Come on, I've always been comfortable with who I am. Well, no, I mean that's not a given, but I mean Irish culture is based around family, around my family had my mum had a lot of brothers who would come around to the house regularly, tell stories, jokes. Were real characters. My father was a real character, as my mum was, and so being comfortable with people who are happy to express their own individuality was part of me growing up, and I think it's really important. Well, it's important for your own self-esteem. If you're not confident in yourself and your ability to share what makes you you, you're never going to really be successful because you're working behind a mask. And I think that's part of the impact that social media has played in our society nowadays, is that people are hiding behind Botox, fillers, but men and women, not just women. People are hiding behind a lot of masks and filters because that's what social media demands, and it can be very, very cruel and unforgiving world if you do show up as yourself. But I mean, I've been doing. I'm at a point in my life where I can't really change anyway, so I'm happy to be myself.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I was just thinking that, that's something that I think a lot of people kind of struggle with, and especially earlier on in your career, because I think as you become more kind of established and senior in your career, you're kind of like, well, me being me is kind of what got me here, so now, like, take it or leave it, this is me. And I think I'm just wondering, for someone who's early in their career, kind of what does that look like? Because I think everybody goes through that a little bit at the beginning, where they're kind of like, does corporate accept me like this, or do I need to be different? So that's why I was just asking, like, how was your journey with that?
Yeah, and actually one point that I will add to that is the rise of neurodiversity in the workplace and in society in general. I've witnessed it firsthand in a number of roles, and I really, first of all, encourage businesses to work out how they can fit neurodiversity into their business and what they can benefit from it, and how to be able to acknowledge it and help and assist those in the workforce who are living with whatever ADHD, whatever, and then being able to help them become more productive and successful, because I've had situations where I've had to, I'm going off tangent a bit, but I've had to police a more senior established male who was really struggling to work with a junior executive who had acute ADHD and was very open about it. And I came in and was able to help both of them understand each other better and have some workarounds, I mean, simple things like if you're having a meeting, preferably don't allow your cat or your pets into the room whilst you're having a meeting, because suddenly, I'd watch recordings of various meetings between them, and the young insect would just jump up and wander off to get the cat or while in the middle of a call. And this really wound up the older, more established professional. And so I had to explain the importance of being able to concentrate, being able to look at someone when you're talking to them, working with your camera on, not being interrupted, etc. Because that's really, really frustrating for the other person, and it's also disrespectful, to be honest.
And what are some of the adjustments that he had to make?
You know what? I think just actually being told, hey, this is the situation. I'm not quite sure if anyone's fully explained what's going on for the other person, and this is how your actions have made them feel. So how can I help you to work around that within also your comfort zone, because you're very old school and expect juniors to behave in a certain way. So it was, first of all, I mean, we all work better when we actually understand what's really going on. So having the time to explain the situation, which probably had never been properly documented or explained, and then secondly, giving him ways to curb his natural dominant personality, as in do this and do this, and keeping the criticism to a minimum and couching it in more constructive feedback terms, but also being able to, what I offered was a safe space, sitting in on the meetings initially for them to learn a new way of working. So to take the learnings out of this, how do we, yes, businesses play a part in being more aware of neurodiversity, but also if you are neurodiverse, if you're comfortable, speak to your manager and ask how they think you could work better, and tell them what you're comfortable with. And sometimes that means that you don't want to work with a camera on, but be aware that if you're in a sales situation, and most business situations, that can be really hard to help quickly build relationships, So being aware, and also if you're wondering why your behavior is not going down well with a colleague, maybe you haven't even realized that you could be neurodiverse. And there's some great resources online, so just checking those out and getting some support from very many groups that are available now.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
It's not easy,
So, slight shift. How did you get into sales?
I learned at the foot of the master. My father had his own business. He was in sales all his life. Actually, my grandmother had her own business as well. My grandmother was really cool. She was very, she was a very hard woman, actually. And She grew up at a time in Ireland when it wasn't that easy. But she had a shop, like, I'm sure my age, but I don't even know. Most people watching this may not remember. There was a show on TV a long time ago called Open All Hours, where they had a corner shop that literally sold everything from potatoes, light bulbs, forks, mops, whatever. And that was my granny's shop. It was very, very successful. My father started there, took it over when she passed, and then he spun up his own business. He had toy wholesalers. So he traveled from Belfast, where I grew up, over to England, to Manchester and Liverpool, to the wholesalers, bought toys by the like ship container load, brought them to Belfast. My claim to fame is my dad brought the first Rubik Cube to Belfast. My dad was, oh man, he could buy and sell anything. Like he knew what was going to sell, and I like to think that I've inherited some of that magic. Because I like literally heard this from when I was a child. I'd like to think that, honestly do believe that if my dad had been born in the States, he'd have given Steve Jobs a run for his money. Funny story, and this is a funny story, not to bring a downer to the conversation, but my dad, in his last few years, got really bad dementia. He didn't know who I was. I was the sole carer for him. And the very last time I saw him before he passed, I would go to see him. He was in a nursing home then, and I would go to see him. And he didn't know who I was, but he turned around to me and he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I work in sales." And I told him that rather than trying to explain the concept of software to him, at this point in the game, I told him that I had a toy shop, and to try and trigger memories. And he said to me, "Oh, where do you buy your stock?" And I went, "Oh, blah, blah, blah." And then he went, "What profit margin have you?" And like this man didn't know who I was. Like, he had kind of repressed to childhood, but he was still selling. Like he was Magic Mick. You know, he was, he was a really, really cool guy. And I learned all the basics from him. And, you know, I learned so much. And it's funny, you know, when I was growing up, I wouldn't say that we were each other's biggest fans. And then, you know, when I, like, during the pandemic, I went back to Ireland to care for him. And it was great. It was great, a really great time. It was incredibly hard and very sad, obviously, but I think like lots of great memories from that. That's what really made me want to get into sales, always passionate about selling. And then luckily I went to work for I started off working for a legal document case management software company in Ireland, in Belfast. And then a company called Microfocus decided to launch their inside sales function in Belfast, and joined them. And I mean, I was always very clear in my career that, and this is like one piece of advice I'd really like stick by if I was starting off my career again, join a good company, work with smart people. Do not be the smartest person in the room. You know, like I like to think that I'm smart, but I much prefer to be the dumbest person in the room, because that's the way you will learn the fastest. And it's bloody hard, because you always, especially now, you know, it's one way to suffer from imposter syndrome as well, because you're always looking at people who've cracked it and are, you know, smashing it every day. But it's a brilliant way of learning. And I encourage people to be very, even in this current climate where I know a lot of my peers are out of work, and a lot of great people are out of work, be choosy about where your next role is, where you go, because those people will shape your habits, they'll encourage you, it's a great source of learning. But if you get the wrong business, it can be really soul destroying. Bad managers and toxic culture really, really isn't good for your mental health. And it seems very obvious, but I was lucky to work for some brilliant companies.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that I actually wanted to talk to you about, some of the companies that you worked for. I think just before we go into that, I couldn't agree more with you about being kind of the worst player on a great team. So like when I played basketball, I had a bit of a choice to make. Do I go to like a lower division where I'll go and score 40 points a game, or do I go to a decent division, really good team, and maybe not play sometimes? And I chose to go to a really good team in a decent division, and I didn't play a lot, but I learned so much from being in that environment, being around amazing players, great coaches. It just totally shaped me. So honestly, I couldn't agree more with you that you have to pick those environments, and it's okay to be bad at something and to have to grow and to change and learn how to add value. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I love that.
Yeah. Man, look, not every single day I'm like that. I'm currently ramping up my knowledge on AI. Like literally,
steep learning curve.
Yeah, of course. Like, because also it's evolving so fast. But hey, and I talk to lots of my peers about it, and they come and ask me about it as well. And so many people are like burying their heads in the sand and going, no, technology is going to take our jobs. I'm like, if you have done it certainly will.
Exactly.
But the only way to make yourself sellable, to make yourself attractive in any environment, is to be the person that knows the most, who's always learning, and is able to, and unfortunately, it's kind of like able to demonstrate it as well, but able to demonstrate it either in your LinkedIn posts, your conversations, your, I was in an interview, sorry, completely digressing, but I was in an interview recently, and I was able to cite a conversation with Sam Altman and OpenAI at Davos about, oh man, he's a great guy to follow. He's so smart, and his thinking is so diverse. And he was talking about the greatest challenge actually in our society now is energy sources. And that to me is like, wow, and he was not your average Joe's not really going to think about that, but it's like the fact that Africa, doesn't have any of the traditional telecoms infrastructure, the cables, etc. So has, in my limited knowledge of reading up, has been able to leapfrog over that, move to drone technology and satellites, and the rise of, that's why many nations in Africa have the highest mobile usage, because every single thing is done by that, one little mini computer in their hands. And those kind of challenges that we're going to face are the things, in the next few years, are the things that we should be thinking about, but also being able to have an opinion on if you've read up about it enough, So for me, just to continuing on the theme of working with smart people, I always believe that if I'm in an interview situation and my CV is pretty much the same as someone else's, what is going to give me the job? Well, it's usually the fact that I'm currently ramping up an AI. I've hosted webinars on it. I've written blogs on it. I'm able to demonstrate the use cases on it. It's the fact that I am still learning, and I'm never ever going to stop learning.
And I think something that's really interesting that you talked about is kind of attitude, because I think that most things in life really come down to attitude, and in a really interesting way, imposter syndrome also kind of comes down to attitude in some ways, in terms of like, I know that there's people that are way better than me, and that's okay. I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow. So part of that is being around people who make me feel like I shouldn't be here. Because I remember sometimes I felt like I should not be on this basketball team, and that was probably true. But my attitude is part of what kept me there. So I think attitude is such an important thing. And even that thing of, I'm willing to always be learning. I'm willing to know that I don't know about AI, but go and learn it. I think attitude makes such a big difference to success.
Yeah. Because, look, I mean, I'll let you tell a little secret. I don't think, we're all pretty much as smart as each other. Some people may have more certificates and whatever, but I personally, when I'm hiring people, hire people for a, can I tolerate them 12 hours a day? Do I like them? Can I work with them? Being able to actually be able to work with someone's a core part of a successful team. But are they coachable? Will they take constructive feedback? Because constructive feedback is the easiest way we can all learn. And are they, do they want to learn to better themselves? Because you really want, that's how you get a team of A-star players,
Agreed.
So,
Agreed. And you briefly mentioned earlier kind of some of the, you got to work for some great companies. So I'd love to hear kind of a whistle-stop tour of your career and also what you learned from each of the companies that you worked for.
Yeah. So I'd probably say kicked off my tech career working for Opsis, who were a legal case management software company, started in Ireland by a really brilliant guy who looked like Columbo. He was, he was. I hasten to say that he was a much cleaner. Columbo was very shabby looking.
Sorry, for those who don't know who Columbo is, explain who Columbo is.
Columbo. Columbo is if you watch Channel 5, you'll get to see him en masse. He's a TV program, US detective, but he's famous. There's actually a sales closing technique called the Columbo technique.
No way.
Because it's famous. Oh, hey man, let me show you. So Columbo comes in, tries to investigate the murder, and he always has the suspect in mind. And then he leaves the scene, and just as he's leaving, he goes, because he has this whole persona of being disorganized and that kind of mad professor type look, doesn't and fools people into thinking that he doesn't know doesn't know anything. And then just as he goes, he always goes, one thing that's bothering me, or one last thing, and this is the Columbo close.
That's a killer moment.
When I used to do physical demos and you would be packing up your briefcase, he would just go, "Oh, one last thing," and then you'd ask whatever, killer question or whatever.
That's the Columbo.
But just when people are relaxed and they think, "Oh yeah, I just got away with it," and then you go in for the kill, totally digress. But the founder of this company looked a bit like Columbo, but he was equally as smart. And his actual smartest technique was hiring me and then letting me get on with the job in hand. And I started off in the Belfast office, and quickly within 6 months, I've achieved the highest sales in the company history.
Wow.
I was like,
that's amazing.
I love that job. Yeah, it was great because he let me, he gave me a bit of guidance, but he realized that I was able to do the job, and he let me get on with it. And there was so much room for personal growth.
What happened next in your career?
Then I went to work with Micro Focus, where I started off as an AE, and there was an existing manager in place who, he left after 6 months, and the business was restructured, and I was promoted to manager director of inside sales for the global region, apart from the US.
No.
And that was interesting because that's when I went from being a part of a team to managing the same team. Very, very hard. That, I had managed before, but this was a very different environment and with really aggressive targets on our heads. So the, you know, it was a tough gig, but we were selling. You know, it was yeah, brilliant role. It's a brilliant VP who I learned loads from. He was very inspirational. And one
What were
thing I
some of the
would
things
say
you
that
learned from him?
he also was not a hands-on manager, you know. I'll tell you what, the one thing I think about as to why I love that job so much. We had a very clear vision. You know, this was a new inside sales function that had been set up in a business that was traditionally run as in, right, so this was 2010 sales, and but we, you know, this 2010 selling, asking people who had COBOL applications. COBOL was one of the first development languages. COBOL applications, to migrate them to the cloud. The cloud was for business, was in its infancy, and trying to sell that to businesses that were, you know, running very stable architecture on a mainframe to yeah, I mean, look up what a mainframe is, but yeah, like that was a challenge. But the vision for the team was to really demonstrate that the traditionally run business along the lines of IBM, where they'd had a cadre of super professional, very experienced sales directors who would be working on 6 or 7 figure deals that may take a year or more to close. The business then decided that there must be some room for lower value deals under 500k to be operated by a team of people inside the business, working from phones really and via email in those days. And there was a lot of skepticism in the business that this model would even work, that anyone would buy it, that people who had come in who didn't really appreciate this technology, because when I had to quickly hire an full inside sales team, and there wasn't anyone in Belfast who knew this technology. So what I was looking for were smart people who were driven and wanted to succeed and could quickly learn. And, I was lucky to get a great team of that, with those people. But the vision was really, let's prove that this model works. They were very clear. This is what we're up against, a skepticism in the business that's not going to work, and also a personal belief, driven by our VP that it will work. That's why he's taken the job. So yeah, I love it when people are clear on why they're setting up a sales team, what the mission is, what the mission of the business is, and I think that's missing in a lot of businesses, and that's probably because they also aren't clear on their product market fit, what problem they're solving, or how who's actually willing to buy that solution. It all feeds down from the start. If you aren't clear on what problem you're solving, then you can't really be clear on what mission you're actually on with that solution set, and what you want your sales team to deliver on.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what was next after Micro Focus?
So then I went to work for Oracle, based in Dublin. They have a massive Dublin hub, and but I was selling into the UK. So then I went on back to an individual contributor role. And that was a real learning curve. I have to say, I put my hand up and I said, when I went into that role, I thought, hey, I'm really good at sales. I know what I'm doing. And oh boy, man, I really learned from the best there. Like, Oracle is a very hard environment working. It's very driven. It's full of lots of people up by the elbows. But actually, we're a really brilliant team. It was a new function that had spun up to move into talent acquisition, applicant tracking systems through an acquisition that they had made. And so there was a new team of people hired to sell this solution. And I made brilliant money at that. The one thing, there's lots of great things about Oracle. They firstly invest at that time about $6,000 or so in your training, coaching, mentoring. So you were taken off for a couple of weeks to learn the basics of the business and to get training on, at that time, Sandler was the methodology that was flavor of the month. And we had this brilliant Sandler trainer called John Costigan. And I'm very happy memories of it, made good money, and learned lots of new disciplines about how to work, how to keep going, how to just deliver, in a very pressurized environment.
What are some of the things that you found that have been really, really good about Fractional, and how have you been able to make that successful?
Yeah, good question. So, I moved into fractional interim work because of personal reasons, caring for my dad whenever. And it was even though I was working, I did 2 roles where I was working 6-month stints, and it was full on. At least at that time, I was able to be based in Belfast, and be able to accommodate, whatever I needed to do. Fractional is interesting. It's an interesting way to work. There's definitely a rise in fractional and interim work.
Yes.
The interim stints that I did, one was for a founder-led business who wanted to move to an individual, to have their first salesperson on board, and that was really easy project, and because it was very simple what was needed, and they were delighted to have me on board and bring my wealth of experiences, setting up very basic sales operation framework and putting more processes around the go-to-markets strategy. And that I really enjoy that. And in the next role, I was hired by a PE fund who had invested in a Dutch company called Visual Fabric, brilliant company, who were hunting for a industry-specific CRO, but needed someone in the interim. So that was a really interesting assignment, and it's lovely being able to work with. The one thing I will say, and we're going to be noticing this more post-Brexit, is that the team was so diverse from every corner of Europe. And when I was hiring for roles with that company, I was able to, we were able to attract candidates from everywhere, and that diversity is brilliant. And I see it lacking in the teams that I'm looking at now in the UK and that I would be hiring for here. And I think that's something that, personally, I think that's something where we're going to be missing out in, as a, within the UK. But the learnings that I take from working fractionally and working interim are be very clear on your brief. And if there isn't a brief, if you don't have a brief, if people are desperate for you to come in and help them with their go-to-market and their sales operations, take a step back and ask why. Even if you ask yourself why first, analyze the situation and be clear on what you think is actually needed, and then agree a framework and metrics around that before you start the assignment. Sounds very basic, but in the initial thrill of engaging with potential prospects and finding a fit, you need to be sure that you can actually deliver against their expectations. Because what I'm finding with a number of founders that I'm speaking to is that their expectations in this current market are unrealistic, and there's a shocking lack of concern around pipeline and pipeline growth, and actually how important it is to have runway. I'm horrified by what I'm seeing with some founders' pipeline, and the lack of concern around that actually is the most frightening part. I don't think businesses. Jason Lemkin of SaaStr wrote a brilliant post on this, on how runway really needs to ramp up from maybe 3 times to 5 times in this current climate. And people need to work out how much money they have before they, what they need before they will go bust. Because I think we've all agreed now that certainly 2024 is better than 2023, but we're not out of the woods yet in the US or in the UK, and you need to shore up your resources and be very clear on where every single penny is going. And that's when founders come to go-to-market professionals and want our help. But I would say just be sure that there is something that you can actually help with, and that they're bought in to what you're going to deliver.
Where do you think this lack of concern is coming from? Like, what do you think is the cause of it?
You know what? I mean, I'm from a place where sales is I grew up in a sales-oriented culture with a father who, two entrepreneurial parents who had their own businesses and knew about how much they needed to make every single day to provide a comfortable life for us. Lots of people don't have that background, and lots of businesses are founded by people who have a brilliant idea, who are subject matter experts in their field, and they create a solution that gets a little bit of traction because it's new, it's different. But is it a must buy? Are people going to put money behind it? Not necessarily in the long term. Do they know their marketplace well enough? Are they familiar with what their competitors are doing? Usually not, because they're so engrossed in the day-to-day running of the business. So it's not a deliberate lack of concern about revenue generation and financial stability, but it's about getting tied up in other things that seem important at the time. But, one founder I spoke to very recently just had 2 deals in his pipeline. And they were very low value. And I'm like, yeah. So that, work out how much money you need to survive, especially if you're running a tech business. Developers are a really expensive resource. Yeah. I mean, okay, we're living in an age of no code, low code. Anyone can launch with lots of free AWS credits, etc. But at some point you need to sell the product, and you need to keep on selling it. So let's make sure that you can do that. Sell and support the product. Actually, this is, if I can make a heartfelt plea to listeners, we're living in an age where no one can expect net new logos anymore. So please, please, please secure your existing customer base. Look at your customers and their usage of your products. Have they onboarded all their team? Are they using all the licenses? Because if they're not going to renew. they're not getting any value? Are you having, QBRs? Totally gone off piste here, but this is something I am passionate about, and this is one way to secure your business by looking after your existing customer base, securing it, and then looking at the land and expand opportunities within that base. And that's where a lot of revenue and a lot of lifelines are going to come from in the next year. But I've heard some horror stories about people, letting household names as a brand just disappear because customer success weren't on it. Okay, well, maybe customer success didn't actually know what their priorities were. They weren't given any targets. They're not salespeople naturally, so I always you have to manage what you measure, and you need to put metrics on that, and people need to be clear on it. Hands-on management, delegating, not relegating, is how you keep team. Yeah, how you keep a team on board and making sure that actually they're going to perform and do what you expect them to do. So, yeah. I could talk for hours on this subject. I mean, I think there are some very, very basic sales, sales basics, the brilliant basics of sales that we need to just remember to get us through the next year.
So we also do a series called Making Revenue Tick, and I think some of the stuff that you're talking about now would be really perfect for that. So that's something that I think we will get you on in the future as well.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd love it. Yeah.
Awesome. So the way that we normally end the podcast is we do what we call tick fire questions. So we have 4 or 5 questions, kind of quick fire round of some quick answers from you. Are you up for that?
Yeah.
Awesome. What's the difference for you between a good leader and a great leader?
A good leader gets the job done. A great leader, gets the job done, brings up a team from maybe performing to absolutely smashing it, helping them develop and, reach up to the next stage, and then, giving them the opportunity to move on if that's right. And someone who's happy to share their experience and learnings so that their team can be better.
Awesome. Thank you. And the next question is, what are the top 3 things that you look for when you're hiring someone?
Smarts. I'm sorry, but I can't work with stupid people. And also, civility. We touched on manners, whatever earlier, but people buy from people. So someone who's personable, who can smile, who can be serious, but knows the kind of basics of normal interaction and can behave themselves in a sales environment. Cool. Oh, sorry, and 3 things. Right, okay. What's the third? Someone who wants to keep learning, someone who's going to come to me and say, Siobhan, we're doing it this way, but could we try this? Because I've tried it and I think it didn't work. And I'm like, yeah. I love people to tell me, that there's a better way of doing it, because that's how we all, get better. So, yeah. Yeah, smarts, personable, and growth mindset.
Love that. What's the best advice that someone's given you?
Slow down. I can't understand your Belfast accent. No. As you know, the best advice is probably chunk it down, niche it. You can't boil the ocean, For me, the secret to performing better is not multitasking, to focus and get the task in hand done, and then actually being able to separate the urgent from the actual important, Like every morning I wake up and I think, okay, what's the top thing? What's the one thing I need to achieve today? What's the kind of top 3 things? I obviously have a to-do list that's got probably about 10 things on it, but I'm realistic to know that there's actually only 1 or 2 things that are actually going to generate me money, going to make my life better, going to help my career, and those are the things that I focus on.
And
so,
final question. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
So, no, you finish. I think I've got a bit of a lag. So you finish.
All right. Yeah. So focus, that would be focus, and yeah, just chunk things down into small, manageable tasks.
Perfect. And then the last question is, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting their career in tech sales?
Follow smart, try and identify who the thought leaders are in your space, and that can be through podcasts or LinkedIn. You know, I follow lots of brilliant people on LinkedIn because they're doing all the hard graft that helps give me a shortcut to what's new, what are the tools I should be looking at. But you know, our time is limited, so you'll quickly identify which of those are actually worth following and which emails and newsletters you should subscribe to. And so follow the thought leaders to work, you know, understand what's going on in the business, keep learning, and also then think about where you want your career to go. You know, I talked about the role of microfocus, and I was really inspired by the VP who I worked for, Mike Steinmetz, and I wanted to be a VP one day. So what I did was look at all of the job ads for a VP role, look at that job description and work out what are the qualifications, the traits that I don't have, and how do I develop them. And then find a mentor and a coach, 2 different things. But yeah, I mean, I pay for coaching. I'm still trying to find another mentor because my last one isn't just he's retired. But yeah, find people who will give you honest and constructive feedback and listen to it, act like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest part.
Yeah. Yeah, actually do things, you know. I mean, I live in my head quite a lot, and yeah, the critical thing about, you know, why I'm VP of sales, why I am where I am, is because I do things. I do a tremendous amount of networking. I go out, I talk to people. I mean, you are like, this happened, this podcast, because I connected with you as a random connection on LinkedIn. And yeah, we just really clicked. But I'm seeing with Richard Washington, you know, and it's just about reaching out and remembering that you have something to contribute, you know. So yeah, there's lots of advice there. Yeah, just do the work. Do the work. You know, whatever that work is to get you to the next step.
I love that. I love that. Do the work. Do the work.
Dance.
Siobhan, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I know it will help a lot of people. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Tolu, for inviting me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and yeah, enjoyed every minute of it. Thanks.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to another episode of What Makes You Tick. I hope that you enjoyed listening as much as I enjoyed having the conversation.
Absolutely. There's so much value in learning from virtual mentors, people that have already gone through incredible careers, and they've got wonderful stories and lessons that they can share for you to have a bigger and better career in tech. And if you like this sort of content, we've also got a newsletter that we publish weekly called Growth Magnet, all about tech startups, leadership, scaling, and performance. We'll put a link in the show notes, and it'll be fantastic to see your comments on our next post.